Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest aliens and UFOs video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another new entry here, once again based on one of your newer suggestions. I'll probably make this my next to last video for this go around, so maybe one more video after this and then I'll give this series a brief rest, start focusing on another playlist and other suggestions tied to it. This one has to do with an interesting case, or actually not even a case, more like an interesting investigation that focuses on a lot of incidences that were happening there in Brazil. And normally, like in my videos, I talk about one single circumstance, one thing that happened to either one person at a certain location or several people, but still just one location. Here, though, is more like an outbreak of sorts of UFO sightings that occurred for 2 years there at a location in Brazil, and it went through a formal investigation as well. So quite a change of pace when it comes to my normal set of videos. But it has to do with this. You're looking at a representation of it now. It has a name associated there in Brazil, but translated to English, it's Operation Saucer, and then also another way of doing it is Operation Plate. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating info associated with this very formal investigation. So here's what happened. First off, I wanted to mention too, another change of pace for this video. This investigation has clearly provided most pictures ever when it comes to UFO evidence. In fact, you'll be seeing it throughout these throughout the rest of the video here, all of these different pics, how there's so much footage, so much photographs that were taken of this unusual stuff. Not only that, but drawings too. So definitely this entry here absolutely has provided some of the best evidence, most abundant evidence yet. So yes, this happened in 1977 to around 1978. The investigation, in other words, there were always numerous other reported UFO sightings happening there in that location of Brazil beforehand, but as far as investigation purposes, it was 1977, 1978 that it was occurring. It was at a place called Colares, which is a tiny place. In fact, when I looked it up online in 2020, so this is, again, a big set of years difference between, let's say, 1977 and 2020. Today's population is a little over 12,000. So you can only imagine what it was during the late 1970s. It would have been a fraction of this population numbers now. But yes, in that tiny place, there was a large number of numerous UFO sightings that were happening there. And interestingly enough, these were not just visible sightings, but there were also problems associated with these sightings on a physical level. As it turns out, local residents were stating that there were bright lights that were either emanating in the sky, some of them hitting them directly, maybe even others nearby, but for whatever reason, these bright lights were blamed for causing scars on people's bodies. In fact, the way the scars looked like, it was almost like if something was, let's say, an animal or a very large insect, like something was sucking the blood out of a wound, and it gives that visible telltale scar afterward. In fact, that's why the local residents named these lights and the UFOs associated with them as chupa chupa, which actually translates to sucker sucker. So these lights, again, were pretty much traumatizing the local residents there, and because of it, they apparently had night vigils that were occurring to make sure that they could alert people out there, hey, you know, these lights are coming back, the UFOs are back, and then that way they could ensure that that they would have a heads-up warning. Or if something was actually happening, like let's say there was a UFO sighted nearby, get this, they were igniting fireworks, which actually in a weird way makes sense. I mean, when you don't have like military type weapons surrounding you and you don't have any other type of armory, something else that's very powerful, a firework would do the trick. You would have something like that go up straight to the sky. Maybe if it's aimed well enough, it might even be close to the UFO, powerful type explosion when it comes to the firework going off, that could definitely make a difference when it comes to these UFOs either staying or going away afterward. And then also there was other fires that were set up nearby. I imagine fires, especially in the nighttime, were used as a form of communication. Like if there was maybe 2 fires nearby or 3 fires, that would mean different levels of things happening. And that's a very visual way of showcasing to another resident far away what's happening, especially in the darkness associated with nighttime. Anyone can see fires from far away, and that will tell people what's happening. But yeah, so many of these UFO sightings were occurring that it actually brought the attention of the mayor, in this case, Mayor Jose Adone Fabacho Soyero, and he in turn tried to get help from the Brazilian Air Force. They're the ones that actually did the official investigation between 1977 and 1978. It was done by a captain there, a guy by the name of Urangi Bolivar Soares Nogueira de Holanda Lima. Wow, that's a long name. But yeah, he basically was the captain of that particular operation, and him and the military that he was overseeing were basically there to make sure that they could take pictures of whatever these things were up in the sky, and then also drawings, maybe from eyewitnesses and so on, document them into official documents as well. In fact, they became a part of the Brazilian National Archives, basically try to get as much evidence as possible, even though a lot of them, in terms of the investigation, remained skeptical. Like in their words, they wanted to see what was happening before they believed what was occurring. And again, based on everything that you see here, it looks like there was a lot of evidence captured. Interestingly enough, it seems like a lot of this info was almost kept on the down low, like it was kept quiet. So like stuff was being captured, stuff was being recorded, but it wasn't like there was much hoopla surrounding it. That's the impression I got when I was reading this information here. Maybe it was to quell panic, to ensure that people again would not get out of hand when it comes to these unusual sightings. You could just imagine also that the residents were just getting more and more scared, especially with these scars and everything else that was happening to their bodies because of these unusual lights. No indication as to why these UFOs were doing what they were doing with the lights and the physical after effects. That just remains up in the air too. But again, after this investigation was quickly done, in fact, it lasted only about 4 months, but it stretched between 1977 and 1978. That was it. There was pretty much no other formal investigation given to this matter. And then it seemed like there was just no more news coming out from the Brazilian Air Force or anyone else that was involved on the higher up side with regards to that operation. It was only about 2 decades later, in 1977, that very same captain that I mentioned a couple of minutes back, the guy with the really long name, he ended up actually recounting, telling his story essentially of what happened. He did it, I think, to a set of UFOologists, maybe even some of the local reporters there. But conspiracy theorists on the UFO side went bonkers because later on, just 3 months after that big interview that he gave, that's when he was found dead, apparently of suicide. He had used his own belt from his bathrobe to hang himself within his home. And that, of course, gives a lot of people the impression that something else was happening at that moment because of the time period involved, just 3 months away from 2 decades of him not giving any information as to what happened with regards to his investigation and what his men saw and what they captured and so on. Now, 3 months after he gave that interview, now he was dead. And I also got the impression that this was some guy that wouldn't necessarily commit suicide. Like maybe he was in a happy place when it came to his retirement years, that kind of stuff. And so that definitely threw a lot of people off. But that's pretty much it. That's all the information associated with it. Interestingly enough, also, if you want to know the number of people that were impacted by this chupa chupa, by these lights again that caused these physical effects, it was about 400 people that ended up having these type of harmful lights hit them. Isn't that crazy? Can you imagine also if maybe some of them were multiple incidences. Like, in other words, same person having the same lights come after him or her, let's say over multiple occasions. Talk about an unlucky street. Being in a city like that, population of only 1,000. Here you have these UFOs, and now you're facing them on multiple nights, and you're having these effects afterward. Not necessarily good luck on that part, but that's just another interesting thing associated with this encounter. But if anybody has any more info about this investigation, then please post those comments below. Maybe you had family members, others that were there in that place, that city of Colares, that maybe have more local info. Then as always, please share your comments below. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.